Hey there everybody, it's Mark Crowley. I'm back with another How to Draw video. Now this is part 2 of a two-part series of videos on how to draw Hatsune Miku. And I did all of the line work in this previous video. And this week we're going to come back and add shading. So I've got my trusty Dixon Ticonderoga, and I'm going to zoom in on the sort of upper area here and get into the shading. Okay, so I'm going to begin by shading the hair, and as I did in this recent video on drawing boys' hair, I'm holding the pencil very low to the page so as to create an even tone. By keeping it low, the lead, a large area of its surface is touching the paper, and you end up with a pretty smooth, whoops, sorry, knocked the camera. Oh, Crilly, you are terrible. You get a pretty smooth, basic, even area of tone here. And I'll go ahead and fill in this area as well before we start to try to work back into this and create added levels of shading. I don't want to get too much into the hair part of it, though, because like I said, I did this recent video that was focused exclusively on shading hair, and for people who watched that, it would be pretty repetitious if I spend a lot of time talking about that. But suffice to say, I'm going to change the way I hold my pencil so as to get a little more precise here, add some extra shadows at the bottom of the hair. And if you want to have a highlight, you can work that back off of the page, I suppose you would say, by erasing with the pencil. Now, if you've got a pencil like the Dixon Ticonderoga, you can get quite precise with your erasing. A lot of art pencils don't have erasers on them, in which case you grab a separate eraser. I've seen actually in Japan they would sell, they're shaped like pencils, but they have erasers in them. I mean, the whole purpose of it is just for erasing. Maybe some of you have such a tool. If so, let us know how well they work for you. But we got the basics of the hair in place. While I'm here, I'm going to go and add a little extra shading back here for these, I was laughing in the previous video. What are these things? These sort of diamond-shaped objects. They're not ribbons, are they? Maybe they are. Maybe they're the ribbons of the future. It's like Dippin' Dots, except for ribbons. Don't know. Does anyone get a reference to Dippin' Dots? Let me know, folks. Anyway, I'm going to move on to shading the sleeves. I'm going to just call these things sleeves. They are not attached to the rest of her clothing, but they look like sleeves to me, and I will regard them as such. Thank you very much. So I'm going to get quite a bit darker here. Some of the illustrations that I saw really treated these as almost jet black. If I go too dark, though, I think we're going to lose a sense of the shape and the form here. So I'm going to just build it up to a certain point. And we do want to be aware of light source here in this video. And with the highlights in the eyes, a lot of times your light source is going to be based on that, right? So I put a highlight over here on the upper right this time. So that suggests that the darkest area of this sleeve, and indeed of all the various parts of this illustration, will be over here on the left side, because the light coming from the upper right. How convenient. And just going to go ahead and finish this up. I am going to try to do as much as I can real time here. Let me know what you think of this approach of doing a two-part video in which the first part teaches only the line work and the second part teaches only the shading. If you like that approach, I can do it more often. It's been a long time since I did a two-part video like this in the early days. In my early days, when I first got on YouTube, back in 2007, I used to do two-part videos. Anyone remember those? Oh, yeah, man. Good times. Good times. But in recent years, I have not done so many two-part videos. Now, this area here is just a gray, as far as I can tell. This, her top, it's not a shirt. What is it, sleeveless shirt? Somebody help me out here with the terminology. But this is actually quite a light shade of gray in the illustrations that I studied. And we'll go ahead and get the basic tone down here. That's one of the challenges of doing a video that is just exclusively about shading, is I do sometimes feel like people are going to get bored if I don't keep the patter going. And it does take a certain amount of time to shade an area in well. So, I may later on have to put out the keys to my time-lapse machine and get this thing moving. But let's go ahead and do another little part here that talks about shading. Light source, upper right, shadows, left, lower left, I guess you would say. But certainly on the left side of her torso is where the shading is going to go. Now, when you see like cell animation, and even a lot of computer-colored stuff is sort of simulating cell animation, the shaded areas can be quite distinct, and it's almost like a two-tone illustration in which it becomes very clear to you, okay, this is the shaded area, and this is the non-shaded area. If you want to replicate that, you can. It requires being, pretty decisive in terms of making choices. Like, okay, this is the shape of the shadow. This area is going to be in shadow, say like right here, and this here is in shadow. But I'm going to decide that the light is casting right across here, and that's where that shadow ends. And sometimes it's for the beginning artist, or just depending on what effect you want. It may be easier not to have such decisive shadow shapes in your drawing, but I thought it would be fun for this one to sort of show what that approach looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and sort of create some fairly defined areas of darker gray as opposed to the lighter gray. So, not too bad. Oh my goodness, I've gone way down and forgot about my video frame. Sorry about that, folks. Did a lot of shading that you could not see because I need to clearly refocus the camera. What am I doing here, man? You'd think I'd know this stuff by now. Let's go ahead and refocus the camera so that I can move on to the rest of the shading. Alright, so I'm going to start shading the necktie here. It's not jet black. But it's not as light as the gray shirt either. I mean, if we were doing this full color, this area would be teal, I believe is the color of her hair, and various matching parts of the clothing. So we're going for sort of mid-tone here that will replicate that. Now, again, let me know in the comment section if those of you who really would love to learn about coloring this character, go ahead and request that, although, I don't know if people will be able to tolerate a third video when they see it in their feed. A third video about Hatsune Miku? What is up with you, Krilly? But let me know, because it could be interesting, actually, to give a very thorough lesson using Hatsune Miku as an example. We're going to make an example of her. But for doing the coloring and so forth, having shown how to do all the line work. This little tie clip thingamabobberoonie is more or less jet black, so you can just sort of go ahead and darken that in. And now we get down to the skirt, and the upper area here, short of this border, is actually quite dark. I think it would match this material of the sleeves up here. So I'm going to go ahead and darken that in fairly decisively, and I'm going to try to do, as I was talking about with the other area of shading, try to do a sort of two-tone approach, where we have, the base color is pretty dark, but then there will be some areas that are even darker than that, maybe almost all the way to, as black as pencil lead will get, which most of you know is not completely jet black. It's more of like a super dark gray. That's why I tend to combine the Dixon Ticonderoga, the sort of standard writing pencil, with the black Prismacolor to get that really jet black line. So I'm going back in here, you can see, and adding darker areas of like true pencil lead black, if we can call it that, We can call it that. We can call it anything we want. And I'm not going to do so much of that over here, because again, we got the light source coming over. We're going to get quite a lot of it, quite a lot of dark areas over here. And maybe just a touch of them over here. Now this band that she wears down here, and in the previous video I got quite confused as to what is this thing for? Somebody answer life's big questions. But if you want to get into the details of it, it's these lower triangles that are darkened in. I'm trying to think of... well, actually, I may be wrong about that. I mean, in some illustrations I saw the lower ones. In other ones I've seen the upper ones. So I may be misinformed. My apologies if I am leading you all astray about the color scheme there. But this lower border here should be toned in at least a little bit. A little bit. That's another one of my little things that comes up in my videos every once in a while. Just a little bit. But you don't want to leave that completely white. Shade it in. I'm giving it sort of a base shade here. And then you can continue going back in with these areas that you had made super dark up here. And finish off the effect there. Alright, well, we're kind of coming down to the end of this one. I think we can go ahead and do these thigh-high stocking things. Which are also that same kind of jet black or super dark blue or whatever it is that we see, I think, on the sleeves and the upper part of the skirt. So I'm going to just try to get in here and darken it up pretty well. And that may do it. In fact, I think I'll just do one of these and have to switch to doing the other part in time-lapse. So hang on just a second. Alright, sorry about that. I have to admit the phone was ringing downstairs. At least I remembered to unplug it up here. I'm going to go ahead and add a final bit of shading over here. Like I said, this area is supposed to be quite dark, except perhaps for these little digitized decorative bits. They may be decorative. They may actually be very important. Who knows what she's using them for. Has a sort of a Buzz Lightyear-like quality. Please don't touch that. It's extremely dangerous. In any case, again, remembering the light shadow scheme of the light coming from the upper right, and so all these shadows get cast on the lower left. And maybe we've covered about as much of this as we need to. I mean, there's the whole aspect of shading in the rest of her hair. I suppose I can do that. We'll make this the last thing. I'm going to do just as I did above with a sort of base layer of gray. I think I want to repeat that effect of the highlight. This time I may make it a little wider since it is such a long flowing area of hair, but sort of lightening that up right there, and then you can go back in and add secondary shading. I think this area over here, come to think of it, because of my light shadow, light source thing, it should be at its darkest over on this side. So work my way back in there, and maybe we're reaching the end of our time here. Let me know if you want to see a full color Hatsune Miku video. I don't think I would do it right away, just because some people may feel that this is overload already, having done 2 weeks in a row a video devoted to this character. I hope you can understand, though, that it's not just learning to draw one character. You're learning techniques that you can apply to lots of different characters, and it may be helpful sometimes to sort of stretch something out to make, in effect, one very long video that you can watch in 2 parts. But let's go ahead and refocus, kick it into time-lapse, and finish off this drawing. All right, well, there's my video on how to add shading to an illustration of Hatsune Miku, but it really could be applied to any number of characters. Hopefully you can use some of these little techniques. Basically, you know, I would say focus on this final polishing phase. That's when really your illustration can be brought to its best. You know, I think sometimes people underrate or don't give enough attention to how much is done at the end when you're sort of balancing things out, making seemingly tiny little changes here and there that all come together to make your illustration look more professional. But let me go ahead and thank anyone who has supported me by getting any of my books. We've got the Brody's Ghost graphic novel series, book 4, coming very soon indeed, and Miki Falls, of course, all 4 of those already out and about, and Mastering Manga, my How to Draw Manga book. I really do appreciate all of you who have supported me by getting those books, by subscribing, by just watching the videos and leaving comments and so forth. But let's go ahead and lay down this pencil. I really do hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll be back with another one real soon.